Good day. I know you're excited to know more about Odyssey and Aeneas. Here are their stories.
A close encounter with a man-eating giant, a sorceress who turns men into pigs, a long-lost king taking back his throne. On their own, any of these make great stories, but each is just one episode in the Odyssey, a 12,000-line poem spanning years of ancient Greek history, myth, and legend. How do we make sense of such a massive text that comes from and tells of a world so far away? The fact that we can read the Odyssey at all is pretty incredible, as it was composed before the Greek alphabet appeared in the 8th century BCE. It was made for listeners rather than readers, and was performed by oral poets called rhapsodes. Tradition identifies its author as a blind man named Homer, but no one definitively knows whether he was real or legendary. The earliest mentions of him occur centuries after his era, and the poems attributed to him seem to have been changed and rearranged many times by multiple authors before finally being written down in their current form. In fact, the word rhapsode means stitching together, as these poets combined existing stories, jokes, myths, and songs into a single narrative. To recite these massive epics live, rhapsodes employed a steady meter, along with mnemonic devices like repetition of memorized passages, or set pieces. These included descriptions of scenery and lists of characters, and helped the rhapsode keep their place in the narrative, just as the chorus or bridge of a song helps us to remember the next verses. Because most of the tales were familiar to the audience, it was common to hear the sections of the poem out of order. At some point, the order became set in stone, and the story was locked into place as the one we read today. But since the world has changed a bit in the last several thousand years, it helps to have some background before jumping in. The Odyssey itself is a sequel to Homer's other famous epic, the Iliad, which tells the story of the Trojan War. If there's one major theme uniting both poems, it's this: do not, under any circumstances, incur the wrath of the gods. The Greek pantheon is a dangerous mix of divine power and human insecurity, prone to jealousy and grudges of epic proportions. And many of the problems faced by humans in the poems are caused by their hubris, or excessive pride in believing themselves superior to the gods. The desire to please the gods was so great that the ancient Greeks traditionally welcomed all strangers into their homes with generosity, for fear that the strangers might be gods in disguise. This ancient code of hospitality was called xenia. It involved hosts providing their guests with safety, food, and comfort, and the guests returning the favor with courtesy and gifts if they had them. Xenia has a significant role in the Odyssey, where Odysseus in his wanderings is the perpetual guest, while in his absence, his clever wife Penelope plays non-stop host. The Odyssey recounts all of Odysseus's years of travel, but the narrative begins in medias res, in the middle of things. 10 years after the Trojan War, we find our hero trapped on an island, still far from his native Ithaca and the family he hasn't seen for 20 years. Because he's angered the sea god Poseidon by blinding his son, a Cyclops, Odysseus' passage home has been fraught with mishap after mishap. With trouble brewing at home and gods discussing his fate, Odysseus begins the account of those missing years the text itself contains. Historians, linguists, and archaeologists have spent centuries searching for the ruins of Troy and identifying which islands Odysseus visited. Just like its hero, the 24-book epic has made its own long journey.
One of the Aeneid introduces Aeneas, a hero destined to become the founder of Rome. Along the way, he will face great battles and challenges thrown before him by Juno, queen of the gods. She wants Carthage to rule the world, but the fates have decreed that Rome will defeat her beloved favorite city. Juno still resents the judgment of Paris, the unjust slight to her beauty, and she will interfere with Aeneas' destiny however she can. Juno bribes Aeolus, king of the winds, to sink the Trojan fleet as it leaves Sicily, but the sea god Neptune calms the seas and rescues the ships. Aeneas and several ships land in a natural harbor on the Libyan coast, but they fear the other ships are lost. In the sky, Aeneas' mother, the love goddess Venus, worries his fate has changed, but Jupiter foretells the future. Aeneas will win a long war and will rule for 3 years. Then his son, Ascanius, will rule for 30 years. Their descendants will rule until Romulus founds Rome, which will be an empire without end. Exploring the area where they've landed, Aeneas and his faithful friend Acades meet Venus in disguise. She tells them of Carthage and Dido, its widowed queen, revealing that their missing ships are there. Hidden in Venus's mist, the men covertly enter Carthage, admiring the bustling city. They make their way to the Temple of Juno, where Aeneas feels welcomed by scenes of the Trojan War. Still hidden, Aeneas and Acades watch Dido welcome the other half of their fleet. The mist dissipates, and Aeneas is revealed. Dido, who knows his story, admires and honors him. Venus, worried that Juno will cause trouble, hatches a plan to protect Aeneas. She bids Cupid to make Dido fall in love with Aeneas. Pretending to be Aeneas' son, Ascanius, Cupid hugs and charms Dido, making her forget her dead husband, whom she loved deeply. Dido begs Aeneas for the story of his travels. Virgil's Roman epic builds off of and copies liberally from Homer's Greek Iliad and Odyssey. Now, the Iliad follows the warrior Achilles in the Trojan War, and the Odyssey tells of the struggles of Odysseus, called Ulysses in the Aeneid, to get home from the war. Virgil's famous first line, "Wars and a man I sing, an exile driven on by fate," sets the stage. Aeneas' fate is tied to the destiny of Rome, and he's presented as a paragon of Roman virtue, but also as having all too human weaknesses. Virgil uses a vast mythology to build toward a prediction of long-lasting peace under Caesar Augustus, the Roman ruler and patron who commissioned Virgil to craft the Aeneid. Paying homage to Homer, Virgil uses epic similes, extended comparisons of one thing to another that use like or as, to paint vivid pictures on the canvas of the imagination that are still powerful 2 millennia after they were written.